Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars Legends lore video. And let's get right into it. Everyone knows about Luke Skywalker's two main lightsabers. First, of course, the Legacy Skywalker saber, which first belonged to his father, was then lost at Bespin, and later wielded by Mara Jade until her death in Star Wars Legends. Then, of course, is his first constructed saber, the green one, which he uses throughout the remainder of his life in Star Wars Legends as his primary saber, with almost no exceptions. However, those were not the only lightsabers used by Luke, and that's ignoring the fact even that sometimes books just messed up colors. For example, he has a blue blade in the courtship of Princess Leia, despite the fact that it's a couple of years after Return of the Jedi, so he should have green. He did, however, legitimately have at least one backup lightsaber, and as we'll discuss in today's video, a red Shoto. For those who don't know, a Shoto is basically a short lightsaber, and in Knights of the Old Republic, they're even just called that. Although almost all lightsabers can vary their blade length somewhat, Shotos were much shorter than a standard blade, usually half the size or less. They were used sometimes by short Jedi like Tekli or Yoda, but also by regularly sized duelists looking for an offhand weapon. Now, you might be thinking, well, that seems pretty useful. Did Luke always have his Shoto with him? No, not really. Luke instead chose to usually rely on his one blade, focusing the extra energy instead on using the Force. That is, with one major exception. One of the first Sith fought by Luke, aside from his father and Palpatine, was the Lady Lumiya. Lumiya herself was not only an Imperial spy during the Rebellion era, but also one of Luke's former love interests and an apprentice of Darth Vader. She was an interesting character. She was shot down and thought killed by Luke, who was guiding his weapons with the Force and actually thought that he shot down a friendly craft because, well, she was undercover within the Alliance. But she survived and adopted a Darth Vader-style life support suit. Lumiya was known not only for the suit, but also for employing a unique light whip, a multi-barbed weapon which could overwhelm an opponent from range, basically a lightsaber in whip form, unsurprisingly. After Endor, Lumiya led the extragalactic Nagai in an attack on the galaxy. During this time, she encountered Luke Skywalker. In her first battle against Luke, using the light whip in Marvel Star Wars 96, she easily overpowers the Jedi, explaining that his Jedi training had prepared him for an energy weapon or a solid weapon, not one that was both at once. Thankfully, after being captured, Luke is saved and builds his second saber, the Shoto, before confronting Lumiya. With the two blades, he's able to counter the dual nature of the light whip and actually lays the winning blow against her with the smaller weapon, having willingly discarded his lightsaber. Although the Alliance of Free Planets, as the New Republic was called at the time, managed to defeat Lumiya's invasion, she escaped and reappeared much later, helping to engineer the fall of Jacen Solo and the Second Galactic Civil War. Luke, knowing that a battle with Lumiya was likely, retrieved his Shoto during this time, in preparation for her light whip. Here's a quote from Legacy of the Force. "So, I think it's time to break out my Shoto," Luke said. Mara raised her eyebrow. The Shoto was a special half-length lightsaber that Luke had built after nearly losing his life the first time he encountered Lumiya's light whip. The shorter blade allowed him to fight in the Jar Kai style, with a weapon in each hand, which countered the advantage of the light whip's dual-natured strands of energy and matter. "So, you're going after her?" Mara asked. Luke nodded. "I think it's time to find Lumiya and get to the bottom of this. Then I'd better build a Shoto too," Mara said, "because you're not going after her alone." Luke and Leia would later battle Lumiya and the fallen Jedi Ali Marar at Galadder 8, with Luke and his Shoto primarily focusing on the light whip. The weapon in that case was used mainly defensively, though Luke did strike at her at least once before deciding to spare the Sith Lord. After that point, Luke's wife Mara turned to hunting Lumiya, and although she was offered Luke's Shoto, she had built her own by that point. That weapon would only really see action in her duel against Jacen. After Mara's death, Luke thought that Lumiya had killed her, so he sought her out for a final duel, during which he actually chose to forgo the second saber. He knew the light whip by now. He relied on the Shoto as an extra weapon in the past to counter the whip's twin elements of matter and energy, but was flooded with a new confidence that he could take her with just the lightsaber that had always stood between him and darkness. Holding it two-handed over his head, he rotated it slowly, stalking around her. And if you want to find out what happened in that battle, I'll put a link to a video I did in the upper right-hand corner. So that's the basic history of Luke's Shoto. It's pretty clear why he constructed it, and why also it saw so little use. Regarding why a Shoto specifically, i.e. why a smaller blade, although we do see some like Palpatine choose to dual-wield regular-sized sabers, oftentimes we see dual-wielders go for a Shoto in their non-dominant hand. The best example of this would probably be Ahsoka. In the Jedi Path, a manual for students of the Force, we get an explanation for why. Those who wish to incorporate a second blade may wish to use a lightsaber Shoto in their offhand, for its shorter blade allows for a greater range of motion. Knights of the Old Republic gives a similar benefit, with bonuses being attributed to balance. The simple logic is that it's less unwieldy to use one short blade, with the smaller one often being used for stabbing or slicing. Of course, there's also the issue of color. Why red? Well, for a long time, red wasn't necessarily a Sith-only thing, although most people did assume that it had some evil connotation. In the lore, red lightsabers were ultimately just a color. During the Corellian trilogy, for example, released in '95, Luke gives Leia a red lightsaber. Some of the old Star Wars Marvel comics, remember, from which the Shoto first appears, also had Luke with a red blade, while other comics also showed ancient Sith using blue lightsabers. You have to remember, in the original trilogy, we only really see 4 sabers. 2 blue, Obi-Wan and Anakin's, 1 green, Luke's, and Vader's red. It's not necessarily like now, where we've seen 1,000 Sith all with red lightsabers. Even in Dark Empire, Palpatine in some cases seems to be wielding a blue blade. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that, but before I leave, I will take a hashtag AskEck question of the day. Today's question comes from Tariff the Random Life. Who would win, 3 eclipses or the Death Star? Pretty easily, 3 eclipses. The eclipses are said to be able to do serious damage to a continent, at least according to the Dark Empire sourcebook. The Death Star will be able to destroy one, of course, but the other 2 can fan out and do serious, catastrophic damage to the moon-sized space station. Pretty easily done. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, thanks for the support. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and wherever else if you want more Star Wars content, but as always, may the Force be with you.